Hi Josh, it's good to see you again. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Thanks for taking your time.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about how the assessment process went and then following up with our outcomes for the services provided, so what we can do for ED and yourself. So before we get started, I wanted to just talk about how the assessments went and the results. But I first wanted to ask you about your input and how the observations and questionnaires and things like that went. So when I was observing ED and your interactions, was that a typical day for ED? Was she like having a really great communication day? Was it a little more challenging? What was your perspective?
I think she was having a pretty good day. Her communication seemed pretty typical for where she's at. Not a lot of new words coming out, but definitely like her gestures are improving, shaking, nodding her head for yes and no's, which is really good. But it definitely seems like she's trapped in her ability to express herself. Like it seems like she's understanding a lot of what's coming in, but just not able to communicate the way she wants to.
Yeah, and I can see that that's frustrating for you also as a parent to know that she's understanding a lot more than she's able to get out. So that can be something frustrating, and we can talk about that a little later too. But to wrap up our assessment in kind of a nice, neat little package, we complete this communication matrix that outlines ED's abilities, strengths, and concerns in categories of not present, emerging, or mastered. So here is that sheet of paper, and we can kind of talk about it. So here at the top, you can see that ED, her strengths, she's mastered a lot of these skills already with both understanding and use of language. And here you see a lot more emerging. So that's that emerging color over here. And so that's really promising. So even though there's some areas down here that we want to get to and we will get to, I think it's important that we focus on this emerging area and where we can build off of this. So just looking at this right now, it's all labeled and everything. Do you have any questions about it as we move forward?
No questions right off the bat, but is it something that I can keep and we can maybe go over later?
Yes, and that's a great idea. So I think it would be awesome for us to revisit this after we've provided some services and we've done some modeling and some coaching. I think this would be good to kind of revisit and be like, okay, where have we improved? Where have we hit that mastering component? But yes, this is your copy to keep. Feel free to put that with all your stuff. And that essentially makes up our assessment portion. So we did our interactions, we did a little more formal test, and we did those parent questionnaires, which you were a great informant for. So thank you for having all your great input about ED. It really helped guide the assessment process. What I wanted to talk about next is moving from assessments to our outcomes. So what information did we get from the assessment and then going towards our outcomes? So I know initially you said that you were looking for ED to kind of get back to where she was. So she was using 2 to 3 word phrases. She was able to communicate more purposefully with you, and you're wanting to get back there. You're wanting her to be at that typically developing level. So after having watched some of the assessment and seen the communication matrix, do you still feel like that's your goal or outcome for our services provided?
Yeah, definitely. After talking with you and kind of like seeing what she can do right now, it's still a possibility.
Okay.
Though I understand it's definitely a process, and there's probably milestones we have to hit, between now and just getting her back to where she was, and that, I expect that's something that we'll work on together.
Yeah. And I think when we're looking at our outcomes, we kind of want to split them into 2 camps. So both the understanding and the use of language. So looking first at understanding, we know that this is a strength for ED. So when we did tasks where we set up several toys and we asked ED to pick a toy that we had mentioned, so we had 3 different toys and we said, ED, pick the toy bear. She was able to pick that out right away. And we did it with several other ones during the observation too. And so I think that revealed that her understanding is there. And have you noticed that too?
I definitely have saw it throughout the assessment.
Yeah, and she's engaged with you.
Yep.
And so we want to build on that. So how can we make those just little tasks that we did more meaningful? So I think when we're looking at the understanding camp, we want to first focus our outcomes on how can we build that understanding to be a foundation for ED's then use of language.
Okay.
So before I talk about a broad explanation of it, how about you give me an example, I guess, of a routine or something familiar that ED is usually pretty motivated and engaged with.
Okay. I think something that she does really well with is bath time.
Okay.
It's something that we do it on a regular basis, obviously, and she's usually really engaged, and we have a lot of fun with it. I think it's just a good time when she's kind of, she's focused in, one area we can maybe do some work there.
Yeah. And so what do your interactions at that time usually look like? Are you just talking her through everything, or are you just singing songs? What does that look like?
Yeah, right now it's, it's a lot of fun with we always start with shampooing and then whatever else. We play with toys, which
good.
She seems to like a lot.
What kind of toys does she like?
We have these little rubber duckies that squirt water.
Oh, fun. So it's more of kind of a fun, lighthearted interaction, and that's probably why it's so motivating and engaging for her. She really enjoys it. So when we're looking at enhancing her understanding of language, we want to build on experiences like that. We don't want to try to force her to have all this language input at lunchtime where she's not super motivated by food or anything. So we first want to focus on a familiar routine. So using your bath time routine example, we want to focus on first adding in more language and adding in more purposeful language. So we want to create this language-rich environment and opportunity. So you already sound like you're doing a great job with singing, but we want to make that language more purposeful. So we want to focus in on our length of our utterances, not utterances, I mean probably phrases. So what length we're using. So if we're talking in a whole paragraph, have you noticed that Edie probably just is like...
Yeah, it's definitely hard. You don't see that level of comprehension when you just, come at her with 2 or 3 sentences all strung in a row. So maybe something a little more simple.
Yeah, so that's what we want to do. So we want to match your child's phrase length. So Edie, we're usually at the 1 word, but I think with her understanding we can increase to 2 or 3 words.
Okay.
So saying the small duck flies, or the small duck jumps, or the small duck went down, something a little longer, but adding that context. So along with decreasing the phrase length, I think also going slower.
Okay.
So it can be easy. Do you ever find yourself talking and talking and talking?
Right, and you just kind of start speeding up as you,
Yeah, and it can be hard too when Edie isn't responding with spoken language, that we can just kind of talk and talk and talk. So just being more aware too of, okay, if this was just a more typical interaction, this would be a time for somebody to speak. So allowing that wait time for her to both understand it and think of any meaningful response that she can provide.
Okay.
So along with the shortening of the phrase length, slowing down, I think one other aspect of increasing her understanding of language would be repetitive use of words.
Okay.
So focusing on those really important words that have both context and understanding with them. So if we're saying the mermaid, but she doesn't have a mermaid toy, it's not going to have any meaning to her. So focusing on that duck toy. So the duck goes up, the duck's underwater. Just having that physical object there along with that repetition will build on her understanding.
Okay.
So with this understanding, we're building a foundation for then expressive language. So this is something that we can definitely model and coach, but is this in general an idea that's making sense?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of bringing things down to her level and giving her time to express herself or comprehend what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
And something else that's important with it is that when we're building on this foundation, we're going to then be able to express. So we're enhancing her understanding of the world and interactions in general.
Okay.
So moving on to our second camp of more expressive language and something that you're very passionate about and want to see Edie improve in. I see the potential for Edie using more words than she is now. Okay. But we first have to take a step, I think, towards getting her vocabulary a little broadened. So we know she has those 5 to 10 words that she uses pretty consistently, like bye-bye and da-da, which is really cute. So building on that vocabulary and giving her more access to more language in different environments, I think, is key. So I think that could be through the use of either high-tech or low-tech communication devices. And I know we had talked about this before and you were a little skeptical, but I'd love to hear more of your input on it right now.
Yeah, it's something I'm just a little nervous about. like you said, if we want to grow her vocabulary, it seems like it should be, kind of on her terms. And if we introduce, any sort of technology into that, I'm worried that she'll become dependent upon it and not express herself without that being around.
Yeah.
And so it's something I'm hesitant to do. I really want her, to be able to speak on her own.
Yeah. And that's a common concern that parents do have when the introduction of devices come in. And I'm not saying that we need to right away stick an iPad in front of Edie. I can understand where your concerns show up there. But being able to provide her some sort of resource that will be able to help her communicate more effectively. So I know right now you're her primary communication partner. So you usually know what she wants or needs just by a look or a gesture.
Right.
And so we want to also expand her communication partners. So by introducing even just a simple picture board type of device, which I have an example of right here, just having this example of she's able to point to a picture and that conveys some meaning to you.
Yeah.
And that can be something that's more universal used across other partners, because I know your family comes around and helps, but usually whenever she needs something, it's, Dad, what is it?
Right. And that'd make it a little bit easier for her rather than have to vocalize it. It's a little easier to make that gesture, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like you said, your concern is you don't want her to be dependent on this, and that's not what we're looking for either. We're looking to have her gain this understanding that this has meaning. So this picture, this label has meaning to my parents and caregivers, whoever that may be, and that if this picture is given to Dad then gives me what I want. But I know moving beyond just wants and needs, communication is important to you too.
Right.
And that can be expanded through this use also. I think a lot of people can get caught up on I want my kid to know how to say they need to go to the bathroom or they're mad, express some sort of feelings. But there's also that social closeness aspect of it where you want your child to be able to say, I love you, Dad.
That would be great.
Yeah, that would be important. So, again, I know you're a little skeptical of this, and I don't want to pressure you or make it an uncomfortable.
Yeah, but it seems like an okay place to start, right? Because it's definitely about her, and if it's a tool that you recommend, okay to try it.
And something with this that I meant to talk about earlier with the receptive language is this: all the tools and things that we want to implement and the outcomes that we want to achieve, they don't have to be 24/7. So I can't expect you to, every single thing that you do with Edie needs to be a language-rich environment with huge opportunities for her to communicate back. Sometimes you just gotta get out the door. There's mornings where you're like, I just need my kid to put her shoes on and then we can head out the door. So these are just tools that we want to use that can guide us in more everyday activities that we have time for and motivating activities to begin with. So again, this is something that we can revisit. I think we're at a great point in time where Edie can give a trial to most of these devices. And again, it doesn't have to be high tech if you feel uncomfortable with that, but I think we have a great platform to kind of jump off of and try a few different things while we're receiving services here. Before we finish up today, so we talked about our outcomes and everything, I just wanted to talk to you about any other resources that our services can provide for you as a parent that you may not be aware of or receiving right now. So is there any concerns that you have right now?
Yeah, it's been a little rough, helping Edie with her challenges, but then also, I'm a single parent. Like you said, there's days where I'm just rushing to get out the door and things seem pretty hectic. Also, kind of handling everything on my own has been really challenging. I feel like I'm not balancing her needs with my needs and, kind of maintaining our household. It might be great to have, someone else to talk to. Like, you're great, obviously, but someone who's going through what I'm going through as a parent, it would be great to have some sort of connection there. And I don't know if that's a one-to-one thing or some sort of, group setting, just someone where I can on a regular basis kind of relate, what I'm going through and know that other people are going through it as well, and hear, maybe some of the tools and, tricks and tips that they're using.
Yeah, and I can hear the frustration with you and the overwhelming from day to day, and I can see that. I don't have any of the resources with me right now, but I've written down your concerns, and I can go look into the resources that we do have and provide, because I know we do have some, but is there an email or phone? Which way is better to get in touch with you with these resources?
Yeah, I think you all have my email address, and that'd probably be best.
Okay, email. Okay, I'll make a note of that because that's important, and your health as a parent is important, especially with Edie and being able to provide the best opportunities for her.